Let's go, dude. Another episode.
So this is it. Yeah, we have very special guest today. No.
Whoa, hey.
Yeah, no, my boy Tanner Foust. You guys all probably know him already, but man who needs no introduction, Tanner Foust, multi-drift champion, multi-awesome guy champion.
Awesome guy.
Yeah, just
the old AG champion.
Yeah. No, just basically like you've done so many different shows. You're a host on Top Gear, host on Supercars Exposed. That was like your first real kind of takeoff point, right?
I think so.
And then you did a lot of other shows in between. Like, what were some of your highlights?
First show I ever did was G4 TV. Remember?
Yes.
From
Yeah.
the days?
Oh, yeah.
Olivia Munn was the host.
That's right.
Yeah,
Yeah. So it was like 05, right? So like the second year.
Just to segue a little bit. So you remember the one producer we had, that one chick that would do all these things off track, right?
Yeah.
I had to go do a blind date with Olivia Munn and with one of her friends who was also a smoke show.
So you're doing a double blind date.
Yeah.
He said had to.
Yeah. I was more, because it was one of those things. It was like, hey, we got you on Thursday, right? We're gonna go do this thing, and it would be like a half day, and it was like out of your life. Do you remember what you had to do?
I do not.
Oh my gosh. So this blind date.
It was not a blind date, I'll tell you that
We
much.
went ice skating. I mean, it was as awkward as they could possibly make it. We went ice skating, and then it was like, Olivia, would you date him? And that kind of a thing. And my game was so poor, still is. But
I remember what I did.
Oh, there
Go
we
ahead,
go. Yes,
ahead.
go.
No, I don't know if my story's better or worse because you got to go on a double blind date with a couple smoke shows.
Yeah.
But no, I got to go to Japan and I went drifting with Dai. Yeah. I don't know if you ever saw that episode. Yeah. Yeah, like I flew out there, met up with Daijiro, and he borrowed his old car that he sold to someone.
I do remember that.
And I got to take it drifting at Ebisu. It was my first time.
But dude, real quick. So like I was just a skateboarder watching you guys. Like, I wasn't even into drifting yet at that time. But Tanner,
Were you alive that time?
I barely, dude. Barely. But Tanner, remind me like how you got into motorsports. Like I know y'all snapped into like moments of motorsports, but like where were you at prior to motorsports?
I mean, I was a kid. I know your family wasn't into racing and stuff like that, and yours was?
Nope.
No.
Was not. No,
So I just like cars. I didn't know anything about motorsport. Like I wasn't a fan of racing. I did see rally racing on TV, and it was like, dynamic. You could kind of see the front tires, see what the driver was doing, but really IndyCar and NASCAR is all you could get, and you couldn't tell what they were going through.
Yeah.
But I never thought about racing as a job, ever. It was such like a departure from what I couldn't see the steps to get there.
Right.
And so I went to school to be a doctor, which is what my dad was. And
This was all in Colorado, right?
Colorado and Boulder.
Where it's from. Cool.
Yeah, and so right around when I was graduating, I sort of had realized, I started working for this inventor guy who invented amusement rides.
Whoa.
And started...
The ones that you see on Instagram, they're always falling over, right?
One of them. But I was almost attached to that one. But there was it was like, when you meet like an entrepreneurial friend that does fun stuff for a living, it's a little...
Your perspective.
Yeah. Changed. Yes. And so I was with that inventor guy. He moved to Florida. I went there to maybe live. Wasn't a big fan. So when I came back, I saw a racetrack from the airplane.
No way.
Drove to the racetrack, and it was Second Creek Raceway right next to Denver International Airport. And I walked up to the track, and I could see from the plane there were it was like an SCCA track day. A dude comes over, tells me I can't stand there, and I was like,
Ooh, dangerous.
started talking to him, and figured that I could volunteer on his team in return for seat time as a mechanic, and I did 8 months to get an SCCA license and one race in a spec Ford. But then I did a lot of bull from there. I did like a coaching service for people who were really bad, or worse than I was, which was really bad. I mean, it was my first race, but ended up kind of chewing through until I found car control and rally as an ice driving instructor in Colorado.
Sick.
So rad.
So what
Yeah, because you were rallied for how many years?
I started rally in 2003, so 8 years, like the same as drifting. I did it all at the same time.
Okay. I thought you were doing rally for like 5 years before you showed up to drifting. It was only like a year or two.
Wait, hold on. Actually, I guess it was 2000. It was 2000 was the first race. and I showed up to drifting in 2004.
Yeah.
And then I did them simultaneously most of the time.
Yeah. So when we first met Tanner, like, yeah, he comes on the scene, like, oh, it's, this is Reese's buddy. He's a rally car guy, and this is when I was living in SoCal still. And Reese used to throw little parties and invite us down to the house. And we show up down there, and Tanner's hanging out, just like, dude, those are good times.
I lived in that house.
We'll just put it that way.
I was supposed to be there for 2 months. I was there for 3 years.
You just moved in.
But when you're like dabbling in motorsports, and you were like, hey, I may have never been able to do this, and then you keep dabbling in motorsports. Like, what was that moment that you were like, holy shit, I'm never not gonna race? Like, when you're like, I made it. I'm racing for the rest of my life. Like, when was that moment?
I remember one of the rally driver meetings in Colorado. They were like, hey, does anybody want to make a living at doing this? And I was like, yeah. And, my co-driver, who was my sponsor, he owned the car dealership. I was like, really? I mean, and my parents were the same way. They're like, supportive, good luck. We'll give it 4 or 5 years. The first moment was Stefan Papadakis was trying to give it a shot from drag racing to drifting.
Yes, dude.
And he was like, it would make more sense. I think he realized how hard it was when he first got going.
Yeah.
And he was like, it would make more sense to have 2 cars.
Yeah.
And so he's like, hey, do you want to run on a team? I mean, it could be any car as long as it's a 350Z.
Yeah.
And why did it have to be a Z?
Because AEM made parts for it, and they saw that as like a good...
Yeah, because that was like 05, Steph came in with his Honda. Because he was still kind of tied with Honda. He built an S2000, ran that year. Yeah. And then, 06, you guys showed up with the Z.
Yeah.
So yeah, it sounded like it was that's what I was asking, because it sounded like it was like 2 S2000s or 2 Zs. It was like, he had his Honda thing. He's like, but you got to be in a Z.
Yeah, I think Honda was a big market. Of course, back then it was 80% of the SEMA show. And then I think the 350Z, when it came out, was like, they were like, this is going to be a good one.
I mean, that's how I got my whole launch into it, because I got the Z, and it was just something subconsciously telling me, like, just buy the new car. You can't afford it. Basically making payments on it, and like, take it racing. I only had it for like 6 months. It's stripped out, has an engine swap and a roll cage in it. Had to make payments on for the next 4 years, but that new car gave me so much attention. Just like how you're saying, like, yeah, the Z was such a hot ticket back then.
That's what I was going to ask. So then when you were at Formula Drift with Papadakis, is that when you were able to start transitioning into like a bit more of like the Hollywood industry, or like the creating, like, how do I word that? Wow. We are in the middle of SEMA, by the way, everybody. Keep it read, Jason.
Jason Barrett over here trying to blow us out.
What I was gonna say was, like, you started to do, creating stuff. Like, you started to jump on camera. Like, did Formula Drift bring that?
Oh yeah, so that's when. So Formula Drift first couple years was on G4. That's one of the producers of G4 was like, hey, we're gonna do some car shows. It'd be cool to have a driver, do some talking. It was a hotel. It was an in-hotel show, like right next to porn. You could also watch a dude like slide around a Corvette, but it didn't cost $24.95. But it was like, I think it was free.
Yeah.
I mean, allegedly, I think that's what those cost. I don't know. But yeah. So they and that was it for Magrac, is what it was, in hotel rooms. And then they started doing this Supercars Exposed show where they were really good at finding rich guys with cars that were like, yeah, let the dude freaking thrash it.
Yeah.
And then that turned into Battle of the Supercars. And then that, so there were probably 5 or 6 shows. Import Racers, Redline TV, and then eventually Top Gear. But the first movie I did was in 2005, was Dukes of Hazzard.
Yeah.
Again, Reese, Rich Rutherford, who was another drift guy from a long time ago. Greg Tracy got me in on that one. I played Billy Prickett, who was the bad guy. Got to drive the General Lee for a lot of the beginning of the movie, but that was cool because I grew up, with those dirt rooster tails ripping through the forest.
One of the awesome guy championships right there.
Yeah, forward to the point, Tokyo Drift happened. Right when we decided to do a 350Z, I got on with Reese doing Tokyo Drift, and Reese was the good guy, I was the bad guy. So I was DK in the gray car.
Yeah.
And
Second awesome guy championship.
That's what I'm trying to say. He's got so many just awesome stories of like different, like, huge moments of people's lives, but they don't know, like, once again, it's like, yes, you have the actors, you have, the whole storyline, the production, everything, but still takes like a whole different level of talent to make what they're watching. Like, that's their dream, that's their fantasy, right? There's an entire like culture behind Fast and Furious, and integral part.
But my like thought process behind that is just like, what are you feeling when you're doing that? Like when, like for example, right? I'm drifting the Ultimaniac. It's super fun. I'm sitting here with you guys, like in my like little kid world. I'm like, this is so cool. But like when you're doing it, when you're on Tokyo Drift the movie, you must be stoked.
Don't f it up. That's all I'm thinking.
I was just gonna say
the whole time. All right, it's a pressure thing because they're like, oh, we got this road, we got these cars, blah blah blah. Reese did prep the Z's, so we had 2 of them that were good, 3 of them that were crash cars. Originally, they had 9 of them that were bad. And Reese convinced him to drop the budget to just build out 2. So we did the same APR kit in it that we ran in the drift car in competition. It was right-hand drive was different, but most other things we used in the competition. So I got like 60 days of practice in that car, which really helped for drifting because you don't get that much practice, So, but for the movies, they're like, oh, we got you this road. You're going to be right on this cliff here, and then Reese will be behind you. You'll get plenty of time to rehearse. Don't worry. And be like, okay. Night keeps going on. He's like, all right, let's do the rehearsal. And
we're setting up. We gotta get lights up. Okay, and then 3 hours later,
they shoot the rehearsal every time.
Oh, you have to.
Yeah, and so there you are.
The best take anyway.
Yeah,
it's like
I know.
There's no like practice. Just go.
No, you just go. So the pressure's on. There's people around. You're grazing cameras. It's like, but honestly, it was kind of like a weird movie. If you remember about it, she almost just died. That was crazy. But it's like, the big actors weren't in the film. So we were sort of like, I'm not sure what we're doing. We loved that it was putting drifting on a big screen because in those days, how many times you say, well, born in the hills of Japan, drifting was a sport of blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, and then everything turned Fast and Furious.
Well, you had to explain it, and it became mainstream after that, which you didn't have to explain what the sport was, which I loved being a part of that. That was
super rad.
Yeah. But it also was a load of practice. And so once we got the Z out, we made an agreement. Stefan came from drag racing. Everything was kind of tilted up to the 9s, but we were just like, let's just give up 80 horsepower, never have to be one of those guys with the sprayers and dumping oil on everything, and just never miss a run.
That's the best feeling.
It's good. The car just works.
Yeah.
So good. But I got to do a little bit with Tokyo Drift. It wasn't on screen. I got to do the sound recording. So
out in California City?
Yeah.
Yeah,
so anytime you heard Hans RX-7, that was me in Tony's old Falcon FD.
What?
Yeah.
Fun though. That's
it was cool. And then I got to do I did Vaughn's Mustang, did the Falcon FD, and there was another car. But it was the sound of all the cars, so it was rad.
They hit up Stefan for some of those cars, and he's like, so let me get this straight, you just want to run all day on a runway and rev the shit out of these cars? He's like, not my car.
He said no. Yeah, he would say no. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah.
It was fun because it wasn't my cars either.
That's
Tony and Vaughn's car.
Well, so and then if we flash forward to today, Tanner, what gets you stoked right now? What are you up to? What do you?
Things have changed. Well, flying, yes, I have always loved flying, but it was just like racing. It was like I didn't know the steps to get there. So I did get my pilot's license in 2015. And living in Southern California, it's amazing because you can get everywhere. You can work doing commercials or movies. You do them up in the desert usually, and there's runways everywhere. I love aviation. I love learning about the history of aviation in SoCal, and all these government contractors, the Douglas and the Lockheed Martin or whatever, they would get a big ass contract and they just build a runway and build their shop on the runway, and then that runway's still working today. And those are all over LA. There's 15 airports in the LA basin.
Dude, people talk about daily drivers. He's a daily flyer.
He's just
but they're really efficient. When he was living in SoCal, he was doing daily trips out to Catalina.
Yeah, I'd go to meetings in Santa Monica. It sounds bougie, but literally I get 14 miles a gallon in that, which is better than your truck. It's
better than my truck.
Yeah.
My truck is literally 10.
No, it's good, but it's 200 miles an hour, so it's 12 minutes to get to Santa Monica instead of 2 hours.
And you know how in
so insane.
In motorsports, people are like, oh, this series gets you to here, that series gets you to here. In flying, is there goals with flying? Is there a next plane or a next
I mean,
thing?
yes, there is, because now that I moved to Colorado, I need something better at altitude, better, over the weather, something with de-icing, pressurized. It all goes up. The game all goes up. You just have to not slip into like with boats, that's the kind of thing, like living in Newport, everybody was getting a bigger and bigger boat. That is such a bottomless pit.
Yeah.
With planes, it doesn't have to be.
Yeah.
You can upgrade the avionics, you can do things to them that actually they can appreciate.
Yeah.
So yes, it's a different world. It is something that you remember when you had something going on the track the next day and you like couldn't sleep and you're like literally watching videos the whole night before, watching track clips and stuff. And I still do that when I come to a new track or do something new in cars, but I do that with airplanes probably even more now, which is crazy.
That's so awesome. Yeah, I mean, it's an entirely different world that I would never know anything about.
Yeah.
Especially like you said, just sit there and deep dive into it. That's cool. You can not riding your planes and getting them upgraded, but yeah, like now you're out in Colorado. I didn't really think about that.
Yeah,
You're
the
already at
aerospace-
elevation.
You got to kind of get away from the piston world if you can,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
get a turbine
Wow.
of some sort, just because they work so much better at altitude. But you saw Tommy Sewell here,
Yeah.
right? So he's as of, is today Saturday? No, in like 3 days he becomes captain. He's been been first officer on a 737 for United for a long time.
Yeah.
That dude crashed some cars, and he's captain in these planes. But he had that in his blood. I think he got his pilot's license when he was 16.
Yeah. So cool.
And he's an amazing pilot. I've been up in planes. I joke about the car crashing. I've been in planes with him, and he is incredible.
Just knows exactly what he's doing. Super confident.
Yeah. But for motorsport, I'm still pretty heavy into pushing motorsport in general.
Yeah.
Like,
We might have to hold for a second.
Okay. Yeah.
Hold Justin Pollock here.
Also, what time do we need to wrap?
I think it's 2:15, 2:20.
Yeah. Like
is it?
5 or 10 more minutes.
Yeah.
2:07 right now.
Okay.
All right, we're good.
We're good. So, when you've been in an industry for 20 years,
Yeah.
you get a mantra that you kind of live by, and that becomes sort of your core passion and how you make decisions, right? So when my daughter was getting her driver's license, I had a daughter a long time ago. She's 19 now. And when she was getting her driver's license, all her friends just wanted phones, just wanted whatever. And it was heartbreaking to see like kids not want to get your license the day you turn 16, like I'm sure all of us. You know what I mean?
I see.
And
I've seen that a lot lately.
yeah, so my whole thing back then was keep driving fun. And we would, at that time I was with Ford, and so we were trying to get the Fiesta into the X Games, and the Fiesta had a young demographic. X Games was about fun, and that really chimed in with Ford. Now it's, yeah, but now, I'll be honest, I feel like I'm becoming an advocate more just for motorsport in general.
Yeah.
Because it is a lot easier for the sponsors, manufacturers to just make some content than it is to go compete.
Right.
And they get more eyeballs, they tell their story, they don't lose.
Right.
And but without the competition, like all the stuff that we have in our street cars, everything, seatbelts, disc brakes, everything is all from 100 years of racing.
Yeah.
And so that innovation, the innovation stops if we stop competing.
I see.
So I mean, look how drift cars have changed. It's insane. Like we were just talking about how everything overheated just 10 years ago, and now nobody misses a run.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, now you can turn the cars on, they just operate themselves and balance themselves out. And
Yeah. You're not chasing wiring issues. Everything
Does
just
that
works.
make sense? So like competition drives the progression, where the kind of firework moments where we sell packages for like a show, if you will, kind of lack that like drive sometimes.
Yeah, because it's so much easier to just produce the content. Like you said, you can take your time. You don't have to run the car 10 tenths because you're just producing the video. So like, I see what you're saying where like it doesn't really help with the innovation side. You kind of just get comfortable.
Right.
And then so like, do you feel too comfortable? Do you want to get back? I know you're still doing some competition. You're doing you were doing Nitro Cross for a while. And was that the only thing you've been competing in lately?
I still do Nora occasionally. Not doing Baja this year. I'm doing Porsche Cup race in 2 weeks.
Okay. So you're still getting it in.
Yeah, this was technically my first professional road race. I've done a lot of road racing, but this one is with Patrick Dempsey. Patrick Long is like a factory.
That's right. Yeah, we were
Porsche
talking
guy.
about that last night.
Yeah.
That's gonna be really cool.
Yeah, I still do Pikes Peak. I try to do like 10 or 12 a year.
Skydiving, Pikes Peak, no.
No.
Dude, I drove up Pikes Peak. Well, one time we did a demo on Pikes Peak up to Engineers Corner before it was paved all the way. And that was like kind of sketchy, but it still had like the trees, right? Like it didn't get to the real cliffs until after that. And we just drove it like in a van.
Scary.
Riding in a van, I was like, my palms are starting to sweat just telling the story. I was like, I don't like it. People are like, you don't do Pikes Peak? I'm like, absolutely not.
How do you mentally prepare for Pikes Peak?
I mean, the more you know the mountain, the less you see the cliffs. But there's I went up there with Radford in the last one. It was a fast car. It was the fastest car I've been up there. 700 something horsepower, weighed 2,500 pounds with me in it. And it was, and it had decent downforce and stuff. And you're down there and you're talking to mechanics about, we just need to work out this. And the driver-engineer relationship. They weren't really engineers. They just kind of got roped into this thing at the last second. And so they're kind of like, do we really need to do this and that? And you don't want to push them too hard because they're long days. You're up at 2 in the morning to go practice on the week before. Right. But then when we practiced the top section and they all did that, drove their rental cars up to the top, and we're just like, holy shit.
Like, what do you need?
Yeah, exactly.
Anything you need.
It was. Whatever it is. Like, we got to make a list, guys. We need to make a list.
We should write some things down.
Yeah, exactly. They don't want to be responsible for sending that thing off.
Is there a motorsports moment that stands out in your brain, like one of the coolest wins or passes or something gnarly that you remember, like your personal highlight,
It's you could ask 10 times and I'd probably different answers, but I think what comes to mind right now is X Games. When we first started running it in LA, and we had this course where we drop into the stadium.
I was there.
And
so sick.
The first year we did 8 stages out in north of LA, and then the final stage was in the stadium, and I was in second behind my driving hero Colin McRae, and we had a delay. We had a slow leak. This is out in the stage. We had a slow leak in the tire, and Colin was like, "Hey, mate, you got a slow leak." And we had 15 minutes of sitting there, and we're like, "Okay, there's a delay. We could have finished the stage with the slow leak, but because of the TV delay, it was going to go flat." So we're like, "So can we go ahead and fix it?" And they're, "Oh no, it's a great opportunity to show the world what rally is about. You're going to have to fix it on the stage. If you could find a camera and pull over." And so that's our race done because it's on the clock on the stage. So we lose 2 minutes right there minimum. So that was done. The next year, I can't remember what happened. Maybe one of the next 2 years is when we kind of got into it with Ken at the finish.
Yeah.
And got the win out of it. And it was just, it wasn't like a, like for skateboarding, for motocross, for some sports, that's a complete 100% 180 in your career.
Yeah.
It's not exactly like that, but it always was something that could never get taken away. And it's like then you sort of get some momentum just kind of crashing through those accomplishments or getting those little tags, and I ended up with 10 medals over the years, and it was just the X Games was such a
guy championship number 3.
4, 5, 6. Yeah. He's up there.
Just
That's so cool, man.
Your resume in racing is awesome. And that's what I like about it. It's because it's so broad, whereas us, I've only done drifting. I'm just now getting into off-road, and we're doing the rush race cars and things like that.
Your videos are awesome,
and we love it. And I'm having so much fun doing other forms of racing.
I know, man. It's you wake up and you're like, whoa, there's all this out there.
Yeah.
I always thought that was the biggest advantage for Reese, Samuel, and I maybe coming into drifting, is the lines that we would see momentum-wise.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. You guys ran the gambit the first half decade.
Yeah.
Well, and once you start racing, you realize how comprehensive drifting can be. Drifting's slower than racing. Yeah. So when you're racing and then you go back to drifting, you're like, dude, what?
It's so funny because it's obviously a little physically slower, but it's mentally a lot slower because we're comfortable with it. We're having a laugh because we're battling out, white knuckling at Lime Rock and just ripping these rush cars and doing over-unders into turn 1. Having an absolute blast. We jump out of those cars, helmets still on, run over, jump in the drift cars, and we're doing tandem within 5 minutes, right? And we're just sitting there, it's everything just calm down, slow down. It's just because that's what we're used to.
You got the muscle memory, you're on autopilot.
Yeah. It's just we're just sitting and spinning.
Drifting is I owe drifting a lot, but beyond just business stuff or whatever, or contacts or friends, I owe drifting some mental prep stuff too, because qualifying at Irwindale, I mean, there's no time in motorsport I think you can get more nervous than that. And especially when they had a radar gun at the wall, and the faster you came at the wall, the better your score. And the Japanese guys would just use the actual speed as your score.
Yeah.
And it was like that level of like trying to accept the nervousness as this is what's going to make it work, or just accept that, look, my heart's about to come out of my chest, but by the time I hit second gear, it's all going to be fine.
Exactly.
And that works with public speaking. It works with everything. You know, that same mental battle.
Dude, that's really cool to hear, honestly. Because like we're just now getting that comparison of like a drift run's 40 seconds. Well, a qualifying could be a 10-minute sprint. You know, so like you get 10 tries at turn 1.
Yeah, you miss it the first time, you got another freaking 50, 80 turns or whatever.
And you can even try different strategies. Yes. You know, when you have those like multiple opportunities.
But that definitely helped us, like going from drifting into other forms of racing. Dude, we all owe drifting a ton, man.
Yeah.
No, it's great, and you know, because you're familiar with what's on the other side of that slide, you realize a lot of those guys around you, and you don't realize it maybe until you see them hit some dirt and tank slap it a couple times, that they don't know what's on the other side of the wall. Like, you know, once it actually starts sliding,
where we can just lean into it.
They don't want to get there
Yeah.
because that's when it costs money, and you live there. So.
Yeah. No, those rush cars, like we've been realizing, like the looser you make them, the faster they go. Yeah. Like you just get into that like light 4-wheel slide through a corner and you're just mobbing by people because, like you said, like they'll feel it and they kind of get out of the pedal a little bit and we'll just kind of carry that through and get the run. It's so fun.
Dude, let's go racing, man.
Yeah, I think you got to go racing. You're like,
oh shit, yep. Hey, I do
you like
actually,
literally
I
need to
gotta
go
change.
racing. Yeah, we got another hour until ours, but yeah, you're up next.
Well, that was awesome, man. Yeah.
Thank
Thanks
you guys
for your time,
very much.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, fellas.
We should
Cheers.
get you to come out in one of those rush cars.
I would actually love it. I mean, I've watched some
Yeah.
videos of it. They sound awesome. And you go to
They're
cool tracks.
super
That's
fun.
one of the best parts is you go to pitching tracks.
Yeah. Really nice tracks. Road America, Lime Rock,
Road Atlanta.
Laguna, Seca.
So sick, dude.
Hey, do they draft? Do they punch a hole?
Oh yeah. They got a little arrow.
Yeah.
Little arrow.
Oh yeah, you draft for sure.
By the way, what is this? Lavender? You guys do it. You do it well. I like it. I like it. Thank
Cheers.
you. All right, see you guys.
Have a good one.